Let's get into Clint Kubiak. Raiders hire Clint Kubiak, of course, offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, who won the Super Bowl this year. He brings along former quarterback coach for the Seahawks, Andrew Janocko. He's going to be the OC this year. Janoko's actually he's been with Kubiak, I think, back in Minnesota and in New Orleans as well. So these guys have a lot of history together. It makes a ton of sense here. I love the Kubiak hiring, Nate. Very excited about this one. We know Tom Brady's excited about it. He tipped his hand when he was calling the NFC Championship game. So you and I think we were on that in the recap show.
We were.
Right away. Yeah.
We laughed at that so much.
Tip his hands. He just flipped the cards over, let us all see it, and it happened. Clint Kubiak, head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I like this one. How do you feeling about Kubiak with the Raiders?
I like it because I know what the quarterback plan is. And I think that's what makes me like why I like it. So it's kind of like cheating a little bit, just like when we did our show earlier today, or my Football 3-1 earlier today, and just kind of like, okay, we're skipping the Raiders as a quarterback question mark because we kind of know what their answer is. We assume. You just never know with the Raiders. So, but I'm assuming this is – but Clint Kubiak wouldn't take this job unless they assured him they have a quarterback answer. So I like this. I think for, even looking at this team, I think the number one negative is their offensive line, and truly a crippling offensive line. And we've talked about this endlessly. It really wasn't just talent. It was just they weren't even going in the right direction. A lot of the same issues that cropped up with the Texans under Bobby Sloak and their offensive line coach. Same kind of stuff. It's like, you don't have the best talent, but if guys go the right direction, you can at least pass. You can be passable. The better, like the Broncos will kick your butt. But if you go against a team that like has average defensive line, okay, you guys aren't going to be embarrassing. Mm-hmm. They were just so embarrassing over week in, week out. Guys going the wrong direction. And then you get the stories afterwards about like, oh yeah, they were not even meeting and players are changing stuff. And the GM is meeting with Genti. It was like, Jesus, guys. So I think that I'm bringing that all up is that Clint Kubiak's offense, he is as true as they get as far as what a Kubiak Shanahan offense is. Much like Andy Reid is a true West Coast guy, this is kind of this variation. Kyle Shanahan has adapted even more than what Kubiak does now, which is kind of funny. That this offense is going to raise the floor of the offensive line. And I think Seattle is the ideal version of that, but Seattle still had a little bit more talent. Charles Cross is good. They nailed it with Zabel, amongst other guys, but they still had some weaknesses along that offensive line. But this zone heavy, boot heavy, play action heavy, screen heavy, what you call it training wheels if you're derogatory, or you can call it helping out the quarterback and lifting everybody else if you're looking at it as complimentary. That's what this is that's why I like this, is that even if that's the weakness, there's at least an answer to help out the weakness. And I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was last year. Do I think they're going to be a top 10 offensive line? No. But why am I bringing this up is they have an answer at quarterback that fits this offense really well. Anyone's heard me talk about Mendoza is that my high end comparison, like I think he can be at the top if he nails that like one projectable, is Matt Ryan. And I think more of a mid tier is somewhere in between Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff, somewhere in that tier. Goff is still not a bad tier to end up. I mean, like that's still like a good starting quarterback, And I'm saying
a lot of guys who have had success in this offensive system.
Speaking of floors, people are using it as a little bit of a knock. He's a high floor player, but there's a little bit more to Mendoza that I think he's even getting credit for. He's got enough juice in the arm to make all the throws. He's a pretty good athlete. He's a good thrower on the move. Like he's not like a trick shot guy, like Cam Ward or some, Mahomes or Allen or some of these guys. But when he can move and throw off platform and throw like both feet flat footed and make those kind of unorthodox throws, which translates really well to this type of offense. If you look at the quarterbacks that the Shanahan Kubiak guys go after, and I've kind of figured this one out, is they have a certain kind of throwing violence that they like. As far as how quick you can throw the ball because of where they attack over the middle. So whether it's Brock Purdy has a really quick motion. Sam Darnold has a longer motion, but it's violent and quick, and he can get it out enough. I think he's maybe the slower guy, even though it's a very violent motion that you can get out. A lot of torque. I mean, we talked a lot about obliques for a couple of weeks, so I'm sure people learned about that. Didn't really matter. But I do think that Mendoza has that throwing style that's quick enough. It's not the quickest you've ever seen, but it's quick. And also it has enough juice on the arm and has the cojones to throw it over the middle. So I think he's a great fit for this offense. And then you get to the weapons. Brock Bowers, one of the most dynamic tight ends in the game, who, I mean, Shanahan Kubiak offenses, if they have a tight end, they're going to feature that guy. Really, Owen Daniels is maybe a good comparison to what you want to see of this offense. Reed for Washington back in the day with Kyle Shanahan when he was there. So I think Bowers is a great fit. And then Ashton Genty at running back, like a very talented running back that you could see the flashes still there. Now going into a Shanahan Kubiak offense that makes old Ron Dane into a 100-yard runner in a game. Like they turn guys, nothing burgers, into actual like Pro Bowlers. And now we got a guy with top 10 talent. So that's very interesting to me. Trey Tucker even fits because Kubiak likes speed guys. That's why he traded for Rashid Shaheed. If you looked at those Shanahan offenses with the Falcons, they always had a speed guy because he looks at guys in certain roles. So I think Tucker's actually a good fit, and we'll see what happens with Jack Besh, because I actually do think he's a pretty good fit. And looking at how Cooper Kupp got used in this offense last year, Besh fits perfectly into that kind of an auxiliary tight end, kind of dirty work power slot, but also can do some outside stuff. I don't know. This is like one of those that maybe I'm just being super idealistic about it, but I think this is kind of the personnel that they have and it can project to have. It fits really well with Clint Kubiak, quarterback, pass catchers. They need another big receiver. But yeah, this is going to be an interesting, like, bad team to me. Like, this is going to be a fun, what I thought last year the Raiders could be, like, interesting 6-11 team. That's kind of how I feel about them right now. Like an interesting 6-11 team that could do some fun stuff on offense with some fun weapons.
Yeah, there's a handful of the teams, and like we were talking about the Cardinals earlier today, and where you and I were talking about them.
Don't you dare! Don't do it again.
Yeah, well, those teams that people were excited about that I was completely out on. I mean, I trashed the Raiders all last year, and I'm like now much more curious about the remade. The remade Raiders, the remade Cardinals. I'm much more curious about them now than I was in their previous version. So just I'm maybe trying to buy low on these teams that people have hated last year, and justifiably so. But yeah, I think a lot of what the Raiders have on the roster does translate to what Clint Kubiak should do. And just going back to just some of the static ranking thing that I came up with. I mean, the Seahawks were number 1 in the NFL in this little made-up ranking because they were 5th in percentage of plays out of heavy personnel, 8th highest play action rate, 2nd in terms of under center rate, 5th in terms of percentage of dropbacks with motion. Like they just push all of those. Hey, the right buttons to push in the modern NFL. They were pushing those last year in Seattle. I think they will push them here in Las Vegas. I've mentioned this before. I think actually it was on 301. I don't think it was on this show, but you remember when the Seahawks drafted Elijah Arroyo and John Schneider said, yeah, there were coaches on our staff who actually thought this guy could play X receiver. And I was like, well, okay, so I know it was Clint Kubiak. That said that. And now you're just getting like the real version of that with Brock Bowers. And that doesn't mean like he's going to play X receiver on every single snap, but that means like that's a guy that can be eligible wherever I put him. Not just like, oh, he's going to play X receiver for 20 snaps a game. It might be like 5 snaps, but those are really impactful 5 snaps. So yeah, I mean, we even think about most NFL offenses, I've said, don't run through the tight end position organically, but Arizona, Trey McBride goes crazy. He comes off that Kubiak tree as well. Although it is interesting. Trey McBride told me at the Super Bowl, he's like, yeah, I wasn't actually the first read that often. The ball just kept finding me. And I was like, well, I think actually there's something to be said about that as well.
There's actually a lot to be said about that.
There's a lot to be said about that. But anyways, I do think the ball will find Brock Bowers a ton here. Yeah. If you have Brock Bowers on your dynasty team, you should be jacked up about this one. Yes. I think the offensive line floor raising aspect, as you mentioned, is going to be present here. What happens in the receiver room, I'm fascinated to see. I do think they need probably like a real deal X receiver. I think Trey Tucker can be useful as the speed guy here. Maybe they sign Rashid Shaheed in free agency because they've got a ton of money to spend. But yeah, I like your Cooper Kupp, Jack Besh comparison. Jack Besh never going to become like a number 1 receiver, but yeah, kind of the current version of Cooper Kupp, like an auxiliary guy who's good in the run game. Yep. That makes a lot more sense for him than the ridiculous stuff that the previous staff was having him do, which made no sense at all. So I just trust this group a lot more with the players on the roster than I ever did the Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, Brennan Carroll, like weirdo arranged marriage thing last year. So I love the Raiders getting a full fresh start here. I'm much more interested in this ecosystem from a fantasy standpoint this year than I certainly was last year. I know there will be no shortage of people interested in the Chargers from a fantasy standpoint this year because they hired Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel, of course, comes from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. He's been the Dolphins head coach since 2022. Dolphins were still pretty good last year. If you just look at their kind of overall offensive efficiency metrics, they were 19th, but they were awesome in the run game, and we all know why they had some issues from a drop back pass standpoint. They were 22nd in drop back EPA, first in rushing EPA. So I think it will be. I have more of a clear vision of what the pass game with McDaniel will look like in Los Angeles than I probably do the run game, just because I think there are some issues on the interior offensive line for sure to solve in Los Angeles. How Hampton fits in this potential run scheme will be interesting to discuss as well. But I love the hire. It's an interesting one from a personality standpoint. It's an interesting one from a schematic standpoint. So this is my final one in the I love it bucket.
Oh yeah, this is the love it. This is wee. This is I think, man, like even. We talked about just like the offensive line and Kubiak being able to mitigate offensive line. They do it in their own way. And McDaniel is just such a man. I had better lines for what I could call this offense before, or like little jokes about what I called it. Like it's the Shanahan offense on LSD. Like that's kind of what it feels like sometimes on acid. It's the acid drop offense. There's different ways to mitigate a poor offensive line. Screens, play action, bootlegs, quick game, having guys chip help. McDaniel has shown that he can mitigate poor offensive line, and it's not just a one game; it's half seasons. And why I bring that up, because what keeps happening to the Chargers? It's like we could say, yes, draft another guard, sign another guy in free agency, but then guys just keep getting hurt. Like until they don't get hurt, I'm going to assume that 3 of their offensive linemen will be down for the season. Like I'm just going to assume that. But why that's so exciting to me, because he has creative ways of doing that. The run game is boom busty, but it's for a reason. It's not just totally gimmicks, even if it does look like a lot of splashing the water everywhere. Like this stuff is actually pretty sound. Passing game wise is the limitations of the offense. That's always going to be the thing with these Shanahan Kubiak offenses, the high end passing game. But that's why they go for quarterbacks where the perfect marriage is you get a quarterback that on third down or in true dropbacks can push the ball and find answers on their own outside the system. Mm-hmm. Darnold can do that. Darnold's kind of like the perfect, like, obviously he just won the Super Bowl, but kind of mid-tier, not like the super powered guys, but he has some of those traits that you want in these types of offenses. When I got Justin Herbert, who's going to just rocket the football everywhere, can throw over the middle, can push the ball, can mitigate sacks, can operate under center, can operate on the move. Like he's going to fit any type of offensive system. But now we get an offensive coordinator that's shown he can lift the floor and help everybody else out outside of just Herbert being a hero. And that's really exciting. Hampton at running back is a great fit because he's so explosive. Like he's a guy that can take it to the house. Watch him against the Giants last year when he had like 9 touches for like 100 yards, something of that sort, something crazy. Probably his best game in just the game flow because the offensive line was so bad they just got taken over. But he's a great fit because he can get outside and get to the edge. And this is an offense that gets guys out in space. Also, other like auxiliary things. Gadsden at tight end, really good, interesting receiver, a receiving tight end, I should say. Not a good blocker. But this offense has shown that they can mitigate those guys, mitigate those deficiencies. Yeah. It's just like he solves a lot of their issues without them even juicing up the rest of the offense. Like if they just stood pat, and I know they won't, and just went in with the same personnel they had in 2025, I'd be feeling so much better because Mike McDaniel has shown that he mitigates a lot of those woes that they potentially could have. And Herbert mitigates McDaniel's woes. Hey, just pushing the ball in dropback situations, creating a little bit of something, finding actually working through progressions rather than being one and done, or just like getting the ball out so quickly. I'm very, very excited about this pairing. Really want to see what they do this offseason. But I'm excited because I just do think this is the type of marriage you want with a guy that's going to boost the run game, can help out the offensive line, understands how to tie in the offense with a quarterback that can lift everybody else up. Very, very exciting. Also, last thing, I do want to mention this with the Raiders. Romeo Doubs team, potentially. Romeo Dobbs with the Raiders? That would be my one little. Sorry, that was a straight thought I wanted to get out there as well.
Dobbs makes sense. I've seen other people say Juwan Jennings. I just think that's kind of a little bit,
I feel like he wants to go to
I think.
Yeah,
that makes It's just, obviously, there's some familiarity there, San Francisco ties, but Dobbs has played in a LaFleur Shanahan offense before, so I think language-wise familiarity, that would make a lot of sense. So
great call.
Just depends on are they looking for speed, or are they looking for somebody who can get on the line and win against press coverage? And I do think that Dobbs fits that latter portion, which I think is more important than just doing the Rashid Shaheed thing again. Although that would be also a fine solution. Just sort of depends.
Juice up the speed, baby.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It just depends on.
Let them
Are you looking for clear outs for Brock Bowers and Jack Besh and stuff underneath, or are you looking for somebody who could maybe be more of their own target? Truly, yes, exactly. That would make a lot of sense there. On McDaniel, I love your point about Hampton, where there are a lot of evaluators who thought he was more of an outside zone runner than a gap scheme runner.
Yeah.
And I think he was starting to kind of figure out Greg Roman's gap scheme before he got the injury last year. This year, I think it's probably just, hey, this is the whole big fast guy. Go get it. And Miami's run game was cooking last year. People were done watching the Dolphins at that point. But like I said, number 1 in rush EPA last year, and they were kind of weaponizing some of those really athletic offensive linemen. We'll see who's healthy here for Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That's obviously the big question, and I do think they need refurbishments on the interior of that offensive line, which they needed last year. They kind of ignored it. I don't think they will ignore it this year. That is where I think they need to spend most of their offseason attention in order to kind of make this offense truly come to life, because pass catcher wise, I think they've got a good room here. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be a featured player in this offense, where he's just going to be in motion all the time, doing some of that Tyreek Hill stuff. He's a really smart player, so he'll have all the route depths. And when we break in against this coverage, that's all going to be sort of dialed in there. Gadsden, agree, good fit as a sort of detached tight end in the Jonnu Smith mold. Quentin Johnson, I wonder if they – I just wonder where they are on Quentin Johnson. I saw our buddy Bill Barnwell float him as an offseason trade candidate. I think that might make sense if they're just kind of done with the QJ experience, but Jim Harbaugh's spoken positively about him before. He does bring some speed and after catch ability, and he could kind of maybe play that. How Jalen Waddle was always that on-ball receiver for this offense, even if I think he'd be best deployed off the line of scrimmage. I think QJ would be best deployed off the line of scrimmage, but could be that kind of on-ball player to allow Ladd McConkey and some of these guys to do the fun pre-snap motion. So, like I said, everybody's going to be high on this Chargers offense, Nate, but I think we share the optimism here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the offensive lineman in space too, because even Alt and Slater, who hopefully both come back healthy, they fit in this offense perfectly. That's exactly the tackles you want this type of offense, because they can move out in space. They can be used as pullers. So yeah, you're going to see a lot of toss action, a lot of stuff outside hitters. Johnson, does have the size to do some dirty work stuff too. As far as just getting in the way and setting a screen. But actually that matters. That's going to help. You're going to need maybe some size over there. I just really like this. And like you were mentioning about the Dolphins offense, that thing was so explosive, that run game with Achane, and they were getting the most out of, Waller coming back from retirement, Julian Hill as a tight end that I sneakily like as this kind of blocker, dirty work guy. But Greg Dulcich had moments in this offense. Washington had moments in this offense. McDaniel is going to do some cool stuff. So kind of curious how he weaponizes with this kind of regime or this personnel that he has right now.